He played villains audiences never forgot, a Bond antagonist who nearly outshone the hero, a monster's first victim aboard the Nostromo, a police lieutenant who commanded every scene he entered for 6 seasons of network television. But away from the cameras, Yaphet Kotto's most enduring role was one the public barely got to see. For more than 2 decades, he was married to a woman most of Hollywood never heard of. No red carpets, no tabloid features, no entourage, just a quiet devotion that outlasted 2 previous marriages and nearly every headline ever written about him. Her name was Tessie Sinahon. This is the story of how she came into his life, what their marriage actually looked like behind closed doors, and what has happened to her in the years since his death, right up to now in 2026. By the early 1980s, Yaphet Kotto had already built one of the more distinctive resumes in American film. Born in New York City to a mother of Panamanian and Antiguan descent and a father from Cameroon, Kotto came up through the Actors Studio and Broadway before Hollywood took notice. He shared the stage with legends in The Great White Hope, then made the leap to film with roles in Nothing But a Man and The Thomas Crown Affair. His true breakout came in 1973 when he stepped into the role of Dr. Kananga, the calculating Bond villain opposite Roger Moore in Live and Let Die. 6 years later, he became part of cinema history again as engineer Dennis Parker in Ridley Scott's Alien, a film that redefined science fiction horror for an entire generation of filmmakers and audiences. By the time he took on Lieutenant Al Giardello in NBC's Homicide, Life on the Street in 1993, Kotto was widely regarded as one of the most versatile character actors of his era, equally convincing as villain, hero, or moral center. But his personal life told a more complicated story than his filmography suggested. He had already gone through 2 marriages by this point, first to German immigrant Rita Ingrid Dittmann, then to Toonie Pettyjohn, each ending in divorce after raising 3 children apiece. Kotto was a serious, introspective man, deeply spiritual, having embraced Judaism and spent years researching his own African ancestry with an intensity rarely associated with working actors. Hollywood knew him as a formidable talent. It knew far less about what he actually wanted in a life partner, and by his own account, he had not yet found it. According to widely reported accounts, Kotto and Tessie Sinahon crossed paths in 1983 in an airport, an almost absurdly unremarkable setting for what would become the defining relationship of his adult life. Sinahon was from the Philippines, a country with no direct connection to the entertainment industry that had shaped Kotto's world for 2 decades. There was no red carpet premiere behind their meeting, no mutual friend in the business smoothing the introduction, no publicist managing the narrative. Just 2 people, by chance in the same place at the same time. What followed was not a whirlwind romance built for tabloid consumption. Reports indicate the 2 spent roughly 15 years together before marrying, a courtship that unfolded almost entirely outside public view, at a time when Kotto was one of the more recognizable faces on American television. For a man whose image had appeared on movie posters beside Roger Moore and Sigourney Weaver, choosing to build a life slowly and privately with a woman who had no connection to that world was itself a quiet statement. It suggested someone searching for steadiness rather than spectacle, a companion rather than another chapter in a public narrative that had already run through 2 divorces. When Kotto and Sinahon finally married on the 12th of July 1998 in Baltimore, the union did not generate the kind of tabloid frenzy that might follow a marriage between 2 entertainment figures, or even between a star and a much younger public figure. Kotto was, by then, a respected working actor rather than a tabloid fixture, known to television audiences primarily through his role on Homicide, a series that had itself been filmed in Baltimore, which explains the choice of city for the ceremony. Coverage of the marriage, where it existed at all, tended to note the cultural contrast rather than sensationalize it. An American actor of Cameroonian and Panamanian descent, raised in the Bronx, marrying a woman from the Philippines he had met entirely by chance 15 years earlier. There was curiosity, certainly, but little of the harsh scrutiny that often greets celebrity relationships perceived as unequal in fame, wealth, or background. If anything, the union was framed with a kind of quiet respect, an acknowledgement that Kotto, after 2 very public divorces conducted in the full glare of the industry, had chosen a private life on his own terms, and had chosen it deliberately. The wedding itself was modest by Hollywood standards. There is no widely documented account of children from the marriage. Instead, Sinahon became part of the extended family Kotto had already built, effectively a stepmother to the 6 children from his first 2 marriages, including his son Frederick, who would go on to become a police officer in San Jose, California. Photographs from industry gatherings in the years that followed occasionally show Sinahon by Kotto's side at award ceremonies and events tied to his work, including gatherings connected to the Black American Cinema Society. She never became a public entertainment figure in her own right, and by most credible accounts, she never sought to. As Kotto's film and television output slowed through the 2000s, the couple appear to have spent increasing amounts of time together in the Philippines, a country that would ultimately become central to the final chapter of his life and career. Some accounts describe the couple's involvement with a small artist's retreat in the southern Leyte region, though details of this remain thinly sourced and should be treated as background color rather than confirmed fact. Unlike his earlier marriages, there is little public record of conflict or separation surrounding Kotto and Sinahon's relationship. What is documented and was reported at the time is that Kotto's health declined in his later years, and that much of that period was spent away from the spotlight, largely based in the Philippines rather than the United States. It would be inaccurate and unfair to both of them to suggest the marriage was without private difficulty. Any relationship spanning more than 2 decades, shaped first by a demanding acting career and later by an aging spouse's declining health, carries challenges that were never made public and should not be speculated upon here. What can be said with confidence based on consistent reporting from the time is that the marriage endured. There was no announced separation, no public falling out, and no indication that the relationship weakened as Kotto's fame receded from its peak and his health became more fragile. If anything, the later years of the marriage appear to have drawn the couple closer, away from Hollywood, and back toward the country where Sinahon had grown up. Yaphet Kotto died on the 15th of March 2021 in the Philippines at the age of 81. It was Tessie Sinahon who confirmed his passing, sharing the news through a statement on his official Facebook page before his longtime agent, Brian Goldhar, verified it to entertainment outlets. Her words that day offered the clearest public glimpse into their relationship that had existed in more than 20 years of marriage. She described him as a good man, a good father, and a good husband, adding that while he had spent his career playing villains on screen, to her he had always been a real hero. In the years since and continuing into 2026, Sinahon has remained almost entirely outside public life. Unlike some spouses of deceased celebrities who step into public advocacy, memoirs, or media appearances tied to their late partner's legacy, she has not pursued that kind of visibility. There has been no book, no documentary interview, no anniversary tribute campaign, nothing resembling a reintroduction to the public 5 years after Kotto's passing. A handful of low-traffic biography sites circulating online in 2026 claim she is a businesswoman, an event planner, or even a visual artist based in Manila, some going as far as describing gallery exhibitions and cultural grants. These claims are not corroborated by mainstream entertainment reporting, contradict one another in basic details, and appear to be speculative filler rather than verified biography. They should be treated with real skepticism rather than repeated as fact. What can be said reliably is this: reports from the time of Kotto's death and shortly after described Sinahon as continuing to live in the Philippines, the country where she and Kotto spent much of their final years together. There is no indication she has remarried or entered a new public relationship. There is no verified evidence of a career in entertainment, business, or the arts that meets the standard of confirmed reporting. She has no active, verified public social media presence tied to her identity, and searches for her name in 2026 largely return the same handful of tribute posts and secondhand biography pages, recycling information from 2021 rather than any new confirmed development in her life. In short, as of 2026, Tessie Sinahon appears to remain exactly what she was throughout her marriage, a private woman who chose to stay out of the spotlight even after it had every reason to find her. There is something worth sitting with in a story like this. Yaphet Kotto spent his career playing men who commanded rooms, who intimidated, who towered over every frame they occupied. But the relationship that outlasted his fame, that carried him through his final years, was built with someone who never wanted to be famous at all, and who even now, 5 years after his death, has chosen to remain that way. It is a reminder that the partnerships celebrities describe as most meaningful are often the ones the public understands least, the ones that unfold in airports and quiet decades rather than in front of cameras. Tessie Sinahon never asked to be part of the entertainment industry's story. She became part of it anyway, not through ambition, but through more than 2 decades of simply staying, and then through a single Facebook post that told the world he was gone. Perhaps that is its own kind of answer to what fame can and cannot offer a person. What do you think made their marriage last where his earlier ones didn't? And do you believe choosing privacy even after a spouse's death protects a relationship's memory, or does it simply leave more questions the public will keep asking anyway?